I thought I'd make a video. I've been wanting to make a video about this subject for quite a while now, and I'm sure the title has some indicator for what this video is going to be about. Essentially, I've been working at the Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater in Colorado since 22, so a couple years now. And we've had our ups and downs. I'm sure every job you've ever had has its ups and downs, right? There's goods and there's bads, of course. Red Rocks mostly has goods, mostly has greats. The music, the atmosphere, working outside, working with people, the social aspect, the love. It's a family there for sure. I have no problems with anyone. Even if you're the person who got this started and got the snowball rolling down the hill, collecting all the snow, and I still hold no resentment towards you. So, just getting that out of the way right at the beginning. I was going to explain what Red Rocks is, but I feel like most of you probably already know, and if you don't, you could give it a good Google search. And like I said, I've been working there since 2022, and my position there is a warehouse worker. So you go, you get the product from the walk-in, from our many different storage areas, and then you bring that product over to the stands. And if you've ever been to Red Rocks, you know it's a big venue with a lot of stairs and not a whole lot of elevators. I mean, there's one at the top on the plaza, which granted that helps a lot, but that's really about it. And the rest you got to carry by hand or dolly. And you're putting a lot of stress and strain on your body doing this kind of work. And it's not for the faint of heart, when we have incredibly busy shows, widespread panic weekends, when we have even EDM shows with water, and water's vital. You need to have access to water at all times. So getting product to its location at a reasonable amount of time is very important, right? Even if it's not water, let's say it's Red Bull, or let's say it's a certain beer. The bartenders probably end up making more money by having every option available, right? If someone comes up and they want Topo Chico and that bar doesn't have it, that person might end up going to another bar to look for it. Or they might end up not drinking anything. That's money lost out for the bartenders, and that's money lost out for the venue as well. These drinks also need to show up at their location cold, and they need to show up unshaken, especially if they're going to be popping them open right off the bat, right as I drop it there, right as I bring it to them. So then this brings me to the next kind of topic. Is a warehouse worker considered a barback? Bit up for interpretation, right? We have some bars at Red Rocks that I can barback behind, especially cocktail bars. I can restock the mixers. I refill the ice wells. If I see that they're low on a cup, like a 16-ounce double, I'll go grab them a sleeve, bust it open, stack them up in their little shelf that's in front of them. Is that still warehouse? Because technically, I'm not grabbing from the warehouse or the storage areas. I'm working within the bar with bartenders kind of in the back. You see where I'm going here? So it's a gray area, right? And this is where this all begins and grows, right? So we as warehouse workers only make, starting out, $20 or $21 an hour. Now, when you first get going there and most of the times it's younger people that start, you're ecstatic. That you're elated. You're at Red Rocks. You're getting to see these shows, and you're not seeing them necessarily. You're listening to them because you're working your ass off. But you get to listen to these shows and get paid to do it. I am grateful. I mean, come on. One of the best jobs in the world, and I have it. So how can I complain? When I first started, simple. We would accept tips. And we got tipped pretty well. First couple years I was there, got tipped pretty well. But it was always with the understanding that we're not supposed to, and it's very hush hush. It's under the table. Don't say anything. Don't make a big deal about it. In other words, you can't even ask a bartender for tips. You can't allude to it in any way. You shouldn't wait around for it. You really just need to let them give it to you if they're going to give it to you. And then just kind of shrug and just say, all right, they gave me the money, and what am I going to do? Say no to the money? And so we started doing that. We were accepting tips. It seemed like it was protocol by the time I got there. So, it was just what we did. And we would split it. So we would pool it all together for everyone, all the warehouse workers there. Pool it all together, split it up, and say adios, right? So this was kind of just like a known thing. It was kind of to the understanding that some management may have known and just kind of allowed it to happen because they knew how hard we were working. They knew that we were also bar backing. They knew what the job required of us. And it seemed like the policy didn't know what it required of us. It seemed like it was just like a policy. I really didn't know why. I had no idea why. I tried not to ask too many questions because I was just grateful of where I was. Until eventually it caught up to us, right? People started flying a little too close to the sun, probably starting to get a little too mouthy with some of the bartenders, and not working as hard for the bartenders that weren't tipping out because that was still happening. And they didn't want to receive any different kind of treatment because of them tipping or not tipping. Now, I was always the kind of person who I will normally give you the same amount of treatment regardless of how you tip me, because that's just how I am. I will always try to give you the peak of what I can give you. Now, I'll do the peak of my responsibilities. But then if I do know that you're one of the good bartenders, I am going to go a little bit extra, and I'm gonna make sure that I get you cold beer, right? I'm gonna dig a little bit further in the back, or I'm gonna make sure that I stock up your coolers, because again, stocking the coolers is not a warehouse thing. That's not warehouse. Right? We need to define what that even is. What is a warehouse? What is a bar back? Okay, to me, a warehouse is just point A, point B. Okay, you have these two right here, right? Point A, warehouse. Point B, stand. That's it. You just deliver. You don't stock. Okay? You don't help out. You don't pass the beers. You don't help or anything because then does that make you a tip position, right? I want to add this little bit here about the difference between a warehouse and a bar back, at least from the perspective of AI, which is using Indeed and restaurantware.com. What is a bar back? In the bar back job description, a warehouse typically refers to a large building used for storing goods, while a bar back is a support role in a bar or restaurant, responsible for assisting bartenders by restocking supplies and maintaining cleanliness. The two roles are in different industries and have distinct responsibilities. Sure they do. Sure. All right, warehouse involves managing inventory, shipping, and receiving goods. Environment typically found in large storage facilities or distribution centers. Key responsibilities: organizing and storing products, handling shipments and deliveries, maintaining inventory records, operating machinery like forklifts. Barback role: primary function, supports bartenders in bars and restaurants to ensure smooth operations. Environment: fast-paced bar settings, often during busy service hours. Key responsibilities: restocking liquor, beer, and supplies, cleaning glassware and bar services, preparing garnishes and ingredients for drinks, assisting bartenders with various tasks during service. So here's the thing. Here's what I want to get into. I want to talk about kind of what I do at Red Rocks and how that relates to this. We do both, right? So we do both of these: storage facilities and bar and restaurants. Okay, we do both of those. Main focus. This is the main focus. Inventory management. No, we do supporting bartenders. Interaction level: limited customer interaction, minimal direct customer interaction. So this is where things get a little different too. When you're at Red Rocks and whenever you have any kind of downtime, right, you're either going to be cleaning or hanging out, chilling. And normally you're, like hanging out in your section. And within that section, you'll be on the stairs or somewhere nearby. And, in that time you're answering a lot of questions for these customers, for the patrons who are coming in. Where's the best food? Where should I go for water? Where are the bathrooms? Where do I get picked up for Ubers and Lyfts? Where are the reserved seats? So I would even say that I have not even minimal direct customer interaction. I do have direct customer interaction. So we're going to say we're more on this side. We're more on this side. Physical demands: heavy lifting, operating machinery, constant movement, lifting cases. Yes. And then another thing is we do operate some machinery, but the only machinery we operate is a pallet or a pallet jack. So an electric pallet jack. We only operate that at the beginning of our shift for ice. That's it. Sometimes if we have a runner, we have a roamer in a way. And he's the floater. That's what I should have said, the floater. It's been a little while. About to go back there now. Forgive me for my mistakes. He's the floater. They're the floater. They'll drive the truck from the top down to the bottom. The top has the main warehouse. And so sometimes it's necessary to have someone drive stuff from the top to the bottom. When we do that, sometimes we use the pallet jack just to grab it from the truck and bring it to the warehouse. That's it. So I would say most of the time we're doing constant moving and lifting cases. 10% of the time we're doing heavy lifting and operating machinery. Skills required: organizational, machinery operation, time management, and teamwork. Yes. I can't tell you how important it is to have good time management as a barback. You need to be able to know if you get a bunch of orders all at once, who has the longest line first off, who is lowest on product second, which one's on the way, right? So who can you knock out bing bang bong, 1 2 3, instead of going 1 back up, 2 back up, 3. There's a lot of that. So you got to manage your time really well. Otherwise, you're going to have some bars that haven't seen you enough and other bars that have. They've been helped too much. I would say organizational, not really. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Organizational, maybe when we're putting product from the truck into the certain warehouse areas, we have to be organized. But that's also just putting the boxes where they go, where they are originally. So we're not creating any new organizational methods. We're just sticking with the ones we already have. Machinery operation, like I said, we do use the pallet jack from time to time. We have no forklifts or anything like that. And the pallet jack normally just stays where it is. We have maybe one, we have like one, two, three people who drive them regularly. And so, me included, we're the ones who normally drive the pallet jacks because we're the most comfortable with it. And back to teamwork, back to this side. Let's get to teamwork. Absolutely. You got to work with your supervisor on your side about, hey, I'm gonna stay up here. I gotta stock this cooler. Can you go check these people down here? Or hey, I'm gonna run up and grab this thing from the plaza. Would you mind staying down and checking these bars for me? All those are important. Also, hey, I have a big order. Can you come help me out? Yes, of course. So there's a lot of that between each other. And then even on top of that, we have different sides. So if, say, one side is more bogged down than the other side, the side that's busy is like, hey, I really need ice to this bar, but we're so busy. Can you guys help with that? Of course. We're slow, no problem. Boom, we're gonna come across to this side. Do you guys help out a little bit over here? And then we're gonna come back. So that's huge teamwork, huge. I'm gonna say no to these. You know, a little bit, sure. A little bit, sure. But the most part, we're over here. I'm gonna bring it back. We were flying too close to the sun. We were, getting a little bit out there. People knew we were getting tipped, and then eventually it caught up to us, right? So we were doing things on Venmo, and eventually it was leaked that we were accepting tips to upper management, and screenshots and proof of all of it. They were public Venmos, which not everyone did. Some people had their Venmos on private, but other people had their Venmos on public. And I'm not going to confirm nor deny that any of that was a tip or not, because it shouldn't be your business, right? Those transactions are off premises, right? You shouldn't have any control over somebody's Venmo accounts, right? I mean, that's the idea. Anyways, so these Venmos were leaked. The hammer was brought down. A lot of my coworkers were fired because of this leak, and it was a tough time. They were getting let go I think it was a week before Widespread Panic, which is one of our busiest shows. It could have been even during. This was about a year and a half ago, so I'm kind of trying to piece it together as well. I should have made this video as soon as it happened. I know. So here's the Denver District tip policy, right? Okay. Supervisory and or managerial employees accepting tips. Employees in a supervisory and or managerial role are not permitted to accept tips of any kind. Warehouse employees accepting tips, unless given prior written authorization / approval by district leadership. So those last two ones are important for what I was mentioning earlier. So I had a lot of supervisors that were also accepting tips. Now I know what you're thinking. Supervisors and managerial employees cannot accept tips. It's against the Geneva Conventions. It's against every convention because they're management, and then they could start doing preferential treatment. I understand that. Okay, but these supervisors are not the typical supervisor. The supervisors, let me explain the setup for how Red Rocks works. So what does this mean? Well, if, say, a warehouse guy's up here, right? And they're either having to go grab product, which is product down here in the tower, or they go all the way up top to grab product. So if they're preoccupied, then the supervisor is going to have to step up and start running some product for these stands down here. And then at that point, what is that? What difference are they? Well, they're pretty much, supervisors. Supervisor equals warehouse. Warehouse plus keys. Now, warehouse already has keys. We have keys to open the tower. We have some other keys too. But the supervisors have more keys to open up, coolers and such. So they do have that purpose going for them. But I'd have to wager that they're not technically supervisors because they're not actually supervising anyone more than the warehouse. And even then, I would argue they're hardly doing that. Some of these bartenders have been there for 10, 20, 30 years. And so imagine a supervisor coming in who's brand new, trying to tell them to do anything. It doesn't work out very well. Sure, they can delineate information from management, but they're not making those decisions themselves, and they're typically not telling the bartenders, what to do, unless the information has been funneled down to them to tell the bartenders what to do. Now, I got to thinking, should these people actually be called supervisors then? Because, they're doing the same amount of physical work as a warehouse runner is, except they just have more keys. So my question is, what is the legal definition of a supervisor? Well, so I pulled up the interpretive notice and formal opinion, the info, number 3C, tips, gratuities, tipped employees under Colorado wage law. So yeah, employers may not use tips in any of the following ways, and if they do, they can't apply a tip credit or tip sharing and must pay full minimum wage as well as return any shared tips, letting an employer, manager, or supervisor share those tips. Okay, well then, let's look up definition of a supervisor. Definition of employee under the NRLA, but let's not read that. Because we have the term supervisor means any individual having authority in the interest of the employer to hire, transfer, suspend, lay off, recall, promote, discharge, assign, reward, or discipline other employees, or responsibly to direct them. Now, I would argue that the Red Rocks warehouse supervisors don't do that. I don't think they hire, they don't transfer, they don't suspend, they don't lay off, they don't recall, they don't promote, discharge, assign, they don't reward, they don't discipline, and it may be responsible to direct, but even then they're not telling the bartenders to which bar they have to go to or anything like that. Maybe you can say, hey, if the supervisor's saying, hey, you have to clean your bar, is that directing? But is that it? Is that the only thing that makes them a supervisor? So I just don't buy that the supervisors aren't allowed to accept tips because they do the same work that the warehouse is doing. And in that sense, they're putting their body through the ringer, and they should deserve accurate compensation as well. They only make $1 more than I do, which isn't good enough. If you work at any other restaurant or bar anywhere else and you're a bar back, you're gonna receive tips. So, and if you're a supervisor at a restaurant or a bar, I imagine you're gonna have a lot more responsibility, and you're probably going to have like benefits and stuff, which we don't have. As a supervisor, we have some, but not like a salaried employee or anything. So So what I'm trying to say is that I just don't. I think the supervisors at the time were wrongfully terminated. However, I don't think it matters because we are Colorado Fire at Will State, so it's not a big deal there. But um, I just thought that it would. I thought it would be interesting to see. So with all that groundwork laid out, I wanted to kind of get to the kind of the meat and potatoes of it. So we kind of already talked about the bringing up private Venmos and firing the employees. If they were honest about it, then they were given a second chance. Had a meeting with the district head, which didn't really go anywhere. But I do want to show you the emails first so I can get to that point chronologically. So this is kind of what I wrote. I said, good evening. The prior tip policy did not implicitly involve your email on it. I'm reaching out because I would like to receive tips tonight. Per the tip policy, I must get written approval. And so that's referring to this guy right here. Unless given prior written authorization/approval from district leadership. There is nowhere on this form where you can find an email for district leadership. There's nothing on here to tell you that there's any way you can reach out or how to reach out or like when is it even possible, when is it appropriate to do so. So I had to pull some strings to get the email myself and contact him. I'm reaching out because I would like to receive tips tonight per the tip policy. I must get written approval. Thank you, Hayden. Okay, that was on June 18th, 4:15. Okay, same time, same day, a couple hours later. Hi, Hayden. Appreciate you reaching out. Accepting tips is against Aramark policy for warehouse and supervisor positions. The wage for those positions is higher as non-tipped positions. Therefore, I cannot approve for this instance. That being said, I will be around Red Rocks on Friday, and perhaps we can discuss further, as I know this is a hot topic. Thanks again for reaching out. So, and he says, I cannot approve for this instance, which is a bit interesting. And that this is my district leadership, so I did reach out. Okay, couldn't get in that day. Okay, copy that. I won't be here Friday. It's like to have a conversation. Is there another day that works? So blah, blah, blah. We're trying to meet up. Is there any way we can meet up tomorrow? The warehouse crew and I agree that we'd like a resolution before the upcoming widespread panic weekend. As you may know, it's our busiest and most profitable weekend. Thanks, Hayden. So this was, when was this? Still about June 18th. Widespread weekend is our most busiest weekend. And we normally count on those tips during that weekend. It's a very profitable weekend for us and for our bartenders, and we work our asses off. So, I feel like my team and I deserve those tips. So I'm trying to get that approval. I'm not available to come to Red Rocks tomorrow. I understand the widespread panic is a busy weekend, but the policy that all employees sign remains in place. Warehouse and supervisors are not permitted to take tips. That's not what I signed. I signed that I can get tips if I get prior written authorization. So that's what I'm trying to do here, but it seems like you're not willing to give me authorization. So I said, understood. Thank you very much. June 19th, Wednesday. Still didn't hear anything before widespread panic. It is widespread panic. Friday, June 21st, 10:53. So we're like maybe maybe like 20 minutes before the end, maybe 30 minutes before the end of that night. And I already had this typed up, and I was working through it whenever I could, whenever I had some breaks, and I really wanted to send this over to him because I think it was a heated time. Everyone was like asking, can we tip you guys out tonight? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I didn't know, and the bartenders are afraid that they're going to get fired if they tip us out. The runners are afraid to accept tips because they don't want to lose their jobs. And so everyone's kind of in this weird, limbo where they want to tip us out, but they can't because they're afraid they're going to get fired. So I said this. I love Red Rocks, not only as a gorgeous historical music venue, but as a business as well. I want to see continual growth in our sales and surpass our past records. I want to remove inefficiencies where I see them and replace them with efficiencies. I want to train my team to be the best barbacks in Colorado, hands down. I want our music venue to sell the most product. Red Rocks currently has no barbacks, only warehouse. The role of a warehouse worker is to deliver product from point A to point B, making it a very crucial job for profits. Warehouse needs to be speedy and accurate while completing orders, or else it could affect the timeliness for bartenders selling a desired product. What incentivizes warehouse workers to move faster? Good question. Currently, there is no obligation to get the product from point A to point B quickly. Warehouse workers, they make an hourly wage, meaning they'll get paid the same regardless of effort applied. This has resulted in many slackers taking advantage of this model, doing the bare minimum because they don't get punished or rewarded regardless. Introducing a tipped wage for warehouse and changing our title. Hold on, let me back up really quick. This has resulted in many slackers taking advantage of this model. So, wouldn't it make sense if product needs to get from point A to point B safely and in a timely manner, that they would get tipped out? Because if the bartenders are tipping adequately, then it shouldn't be an issue, right? You should see an increase in your pay depending on effort applied, right? That's kind of what I'm getting into here. Introducing a tipped wage for warehouse and changing our title to barback would reduce the cost of labor. Wouldn't everybody want that? While incentivizing barbacks to go above and beyond for their assigned bars. The loss of hourly wage would be supplemented by tips from the bartenders, who will have the option to pay their barbacks with the credit card tips they made from that night or with cash. This way, barbacks would see fluctuations to their pay depending on the effort applied, as long as the bartenders tip adequately, right? Just as I was saying, if they, I think 10% is a good minimum, but if you want, 10 to 20, and then, if they did an excellent job, 20%. If they did a mediocre job, 10%. I think the bartender should still have that choice. It's their money. We're working for them, really, and we'd be better off for it. This change would positively affect the dynamic between bartender and barback, forcing barbacks to take a more active role behind the bars, rewarding those that stock, refill ice wells, refill mixers, pass cans, replace empty liquor bottles, etc., while punishing those that take a back seat. Essentially, this will expand the role and tasks expected of a warehouse worker to mimic that of a barback in a normal bar setting. Camaraderie would have to increase between the two positions, creating a much more harmonious working relationship, resulting in a tight-knit team that would benefit all parties involved. Right, because right now, there's nothing stopping a warehouse worker from just dropping the product off. Like cases of booze, they can just drop it off at the bar when the bar is 20 people deep and they have a crazy line. There's nothing incentivizing those warehouse workers to actually stock the bars because they're not getting paid more. And so if it's busy, it doesn't matter to them. They're not gonna walk faster. They have no reason to walk faster. They're not gonna get the coldest product. They're not going to rotate dates even if you do stock. They're not gonna do any of that because they're warehouse. They don't need to. I love the people I work with, my coworkers, bartenders, the management. I love the place and the atmosphere. But this is the one thing that's always been a point of contention. When a bartender walks out with over $800 and we walk with $150 in hourly wages, it hurts. So I'm sorry if this creates more issues for you, but it's something I'm passionate about and will never give up. This isn't just about me or my wallet. It's about the whole crew's well-being and future barbacks at Red Rocks. I hope you consider changing us to barbacks. Thank you for your consideration, Hayden Miller. So, even though this is wordy, it's long, I really wanted to get across that this is something that I care about and I'm passionate about. I didn't use any AI for this. In fact, this was before it even got popularized. I wanted to add that during this time, the bartenders are worried and they're scared for their jobs. And so are warehouse and so are the supervisors. So many, if not all of them, almost all of them, refused to tip out during that season. Pretty much the whole latter half, if not more, people were refusing to tip out because of worrying that they're going to be fired for tipping out their barbacks. So just wanted to add that in there. That's why it was so pressing trying to get approval for the Widespread Panic weekend. And I wanted to show that I care about this. you know, and it really matters to me, and it's made me sick over the years that there's some bartenders that can work us like dogs and walk out with 800, like $600 to $1,000 in a night, and not have to tip us out anything. This was the response I got. Thanks, Hayden. I don't necessarily disagree with your sentiments below. Changing the classification and pay structure of an entire department will not be an easy nor speedy process, but I am willing to explore what is possible here for the future. Cheers. So then, this is after this, I had my meeting with him, right? We kind of talked. And like I said, it was a while ago, so I don't want to put too much weight in our conversation because I can't remember it verbatim, and I meant to write down some of it, but I didn't. So I do remember, however, that a big part of it, a big portion of it, was other venues. Them being worried that other venues would want to switch as well, and also saying that Red Rocks is not special. It's not different than any of the other venues that they have. I would like to argue that it is very different because it's not a stadium. A stadium has, you probably have multiple elevators everywhere, and you probably dolly around places. You don't have to use stairs. It's different. It's different. So we waited. We waited though. I remember hearing we talked about it, and they were saying, okay, well, my direct management told the direct, our direct leadership, the district leadership, that they would be working on a new proposal for switching us. Okay, so we waited till the end of the season, and then we waited until the next season was getting started before we even talked about it. Remember, because he said, I'm not willing, we can't do it in the middle of the season. It's not speedy, changing the entire department. It's going to take a while. He's here for the future. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm reaching out to you because I have yet to sign the new tip policy form for a few reasons. It states that warehouse can accept tips if they get approval from district leadership, which is false. This was a part of conversation. This was part of our in-person conversation. We kind of touched on there probably would be no way that we could be receiving tips. I don't think he would ever approve of it. So why is it even on there? Why even dangle that carrot in front of our faces if it's never going to be approved? I said we deserve to accept tips considering our role. Is there any way we can bring a new proposal to the table? I understand the last one from Brian was denied. Why was that? Maybe we can adjust the proposal and have it accepted before the session starts. Before the season starts. I understand it's much harder to change mid-season than the beginning, so hopefully we can figure this out before then. Thank you for your time, Hayden. Now this was 9 months later, as I've written. Okay, hi Hayden. While I'm sorry you don't agree with the policy, you are expected to adhere to it to continue employment with Aramark. The previous proposal was denied for multiple factors, consistency across venues and roles, as well as existing long-standing practices, to name a few. The policy is set for this season and will not be revised at this time. Please sign and adhere to the tip policy should you wish to continue in your current role. Cheers. I very, very reluctantly signed this paper. Very reluctantly, because I wanted to work, and I like my job, so I didn't want to get kicked, didn't want to get kicked to the curb, so I did sign it very reluctantly. This is my response. Good morning. If the plan is to completely eradicate tips for warehouse, then that would make us the most underappreciated department in the whole venue. Facilities makes about $27 an hour. Merch, $21 to $100 an hour. Bartenders and cashiers, $30 to $100 an hour. Vending, $30 to $100 an hour. Security gets into shows for free. If Coors and Empower and security gets about the same pay as us, but they do have to deal with a lot of crap. I will give them that. But they're not moving like we are. Most of them don't move like we do. If Coors and Empower wants to switch after we do, then why not? Because as I was saying, this was also a thing. Because remember back down here, he says previous for consistency across venues. Consistency across venues. Which, okay. Little detour. Mission Ballroom is Aramark, right? Mission Ballroom is Aramark. Everyone, if you're in Denver, you know Mission. Okay, people love Mission Ballroom. It's Aramark. Yet they tip out their barbacks. How it works is that they tip pool. So everyone, all the bartenders, all the barbacks, they all make the same amount, right? So I have a friend who may or may not be there right now, who checked his position for me. Apparently, he is in the system as a bartender. That's how he gets tips. So why is it consistency across venues? Huh. Mission Ballroom seems like an inconsistency, doesn't it? And roles, consistency with roles. Mission Ballroom seems like an inconsistency, doesn't it? Existing long-standing practices. Mission Ballroom seems to be breaking those existing long-standing practices. So what it seems to me is like you can break these long-standing practices. You can be inconsistent, but only if there's certain variables, certain measures that need to fall into place for that to happen. I don't know exactly why. I've heard rumors that that the previous owners, previous people managing it, the people that are still there now, when they were signing a contract with Aramark, made sure to set down these red lines to make sure to say, hey, you're not going to be changing these things. Good for them. Good for them for putting their foot down. So they're the exception, not the rule. Okay. Well, still shows and proves that there can be inconsistencies across the venues. And if Red Rocks isn't special, Mission is special? I'm sorry. I thought Red Rocks is the most special venue in the world, not a Mission Ballroom which is copy and pasted across the nation. All right. So anyways, this is what I said. Security gets into shows for free? They do. Do we get free tickets? No. I work for Live Nation as well, down at the Fillmore Auditorium in Denver. We get 12 tickets a year. 12 a year. We can give them to friends. We can do whatever we want with them. Do we get tickets at Red Rocks? No. No, we don't. No. What happens if we try to go see a show for free? We can get fired, essentially. Does it always happen that way? Of course not. There's sometimes ways around. I'm not going to get too much into that, but for the most part, no go. And they're not planning to. They don't give us beer tickets either. So at Fillmore, I can get a free drink if I wanted to for me and a friend. Red Rocks, they don't do that. No. No free stuff for you. So I said if Coors and Empower want to switch after we do, then why not? The amount of money Aramark could make by making a nationwide switch, PM, warehouse, to a tipped position would be huge. Wouldn't the CEO and CFO want to hear about this? What about the board of shareholders? Would they vote no on foregone profits? So my argument, of course, I don't know much about management. I'm not in a managerial position, okay? So I'm coming at this as prepubescent turd up in Schitt's Creek, okay? I don't know all the ins and outs. There's probably more to it than I'm attaching value to. But when I look at it simply like this is how my brain works. I'm simple. I'm a simpleton, okay? If the PM warehouse normally is an hourly position, $21, $22 an hour, and then you can bring them down to their tipped position, depending on what state, what city you're in, could be anywhere from frickin' what, $8 an hour? I'm sure some places drop down that low. 8 to 18, we're probably the highest, $18, $19 an hour, Washington maybe, up in that ballpark. From 22 down to here, hard. That's almost a no-brainer, right? And if there's warehouse positions all over these stadiums, then I don't see how this would be passed up, because it seems like they would be able to save a lot of money this way, right? That's how my brain works. The only thing I could think about is if there's an infrastructure shift, right? So because the tip credit thing, you have to account for what if they don't make enough money that day from the tips, then you have to make up the wages, and then you have to pretty much hire like a new admin role, which maybe that's going to be so expensive that it just evens out or something. But I still would have to think that Maybe not. Okay, if it's truly off the table, then a raise to $30 an hour, 10 tickets per season, and beer tickets would be adequate compensation for the work we do and profits we help produce. Thank you for reading and responding back to my emails. I appreciate the transparency and consideration. So $30 an hour, right? Seems like a lot, but that's how much you would make in these roles, right? If your bartender's making $800, hell, we can do the math really quick. Let's check it out, okay? I just really quickly wanted to do this. 800 times 0.20, that's 20%. Say you have 4 bartenders, that's $640, as opposed to the 21 times 8, 168. So we're talking about a 160 to 640 kind of difference there. So my thinking is, well, if we're not going to be getting the tips, we should be getting $30 an hour. Not saying I should be making more than facilities, because facilities also works their ass off. All these guys work their asses off. And I'm not trying to talk down on any of their positions. I think they're all important for the running of our venue. But if it is the most prestigious, world-renowned outdoor venue that everyone says it is, then shouldn't everyone in there be getting taken care of? Shouldn't everyone in there be making fat stacks? And not just a couple of the positions for some reason? You want to make us the beast of burden. Make us the horse, the camel that carries all the product and never sees any of that back. Huh. So then the response to that, Hayden, tips have never been a part of the compensation for warehouse. Any accepting of tips would have been in violation of policy and potentially a terminable offense. Hold on. Hayden, tips have never been a part of the compensation for warehouse. Any accepting of tips would have been in violation of policy and potentially a terminable offense, which I believe you know already, since this is how this conversation started. The existing compensation for your current role will not be amended. If you want to apply for a tipped role with Aramark, you are welcome to do so. Any future comments, or conversation on this topic should go to your on-site leadership, whom I've added to this email. I need to make sure to stop tapping the desk because I know how bad it is for the microphone. So essentially he's saying, tips have already been eradicated from this position. Dude, you shouldn't be accepting tips anyways. And it's in violation, could be terminated, which I'm surprised I haven't been already, let's be honest. And the existing compensation for your current role will not be amended. So we went from being happy and kind of talking about the future, what's possible here for the future. Changing a classification and pay structure in an entire department would not be easy nor speedy, but I am willing to explore what is possible here for the future. Now this doesn't sound like willing, and I understand my email is quite aggressive, but can you blame me? I'm either making, let's pull this up again, I'm either making $168 a night or $640. Multiply that by multiple shows, I'm either making $28,000 a season to like $50,000 a season. You're robbing me of tens of thousands of dollars. So of course I'm a little peeved. Can you tell? And I know he shot back with that, so fair enough. I'd be welcome to apply for a tipped role, which I did also apply for a tipped role and was refused. Was denied the position. And that's pretty much how it ended. There's been no real headway. No changes, really. A couple of updates. I tried to... Well, a coworker of mine had contact information for a local news agency, news source, right? I reached out to them, kind of telling them the situation, not getting too much into too much detail, kind of telling them that I had some dirt on Aramark and Red Rocks. No emails back. Makes you wonder why. So then I think this also connects to the fact that the city of Denver owns Red Rocks, right? Aramark is just hired on to pretty much do the food and beverages stuff. But the city of Denver owns it. You know, they control everything that goes on there. So that's kind of the line that they've been pitching to us. So we can't change the tip policy because our client wants us to keep it this way. And that's what we were told at an orientation meeting during one year. I believe it was last year. One of the HR ladies told us that. She said that this is what the client wants. The client decided this. Is that true? Is that really the case? Because I had somebody who may have talked to some city employees who said that, no, we don't care. We don't mind at all. Really, we don't care what Aramark does. All we care about is profits. So as long as those keep coming, we could care less what Aramark does. So they're shifting the blame around. Who's to blame? Who do I point the finger at? They don't want me to point the finger at anybody. They don't want us to point the finger at anybody. Because they'd rather us keep shifting the blame, deflect, until eventually it's dropped. Until eventually everyone who used to work there who is passionate about this subject is either moved on or they've accepted promotions. So what do we do now? What do we do next? Well, this upcoming season 2026 season, I'm still slated to work there, and I'm excited. I love Red Rocks. I love it there. I can't say that enough, But I hate the corporation, and so I guess we have to ask ourselves as Coloradans, because I know there's other Colorado natives out there, other people who love Red Rocks. I mean, Red Rocks is like, that's our baby, Do we want this giant corporation to have its tentacles in Red Rocks? Is that what we want? If it's owned by the city of Denver, then our tax money is going to owning the venue, and it's going to upgrading the venue and everything else. So shouldn't we have a say for who runs this operation? Shouldn't we have some kind of, pushback to this? Because wouldn't you want the workers who are there to feel like this is a home? We were told recently, no piercings. You can't have big hoop earrings. You can't have the nose piercings. You can't have any facial piercings. They took that away. The city of Denver recently gave us new uniforms. They look awful. So they're taking away our individuality, making us look like prisoners. They literally have big numbers on the chests. Literally. So I ask you, is the heart and soul of Red Rocks, is that important to these people? Because it doesn't seem like it to me. The people who work there, the people who actually work there every show, it matters to them. Like, this is our life. But to the people who are making the decisions for it, it seems like they could care less. And that just really upsets me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for sticking it out. This might not be a big deal to anybody, really. And I'd understand if it isn't, because everybody's having issues at their work, right? But if you're an avid concert goer, if you care about Red Rocks at all, I think you would care about this and should care about it. Anyways, thanks.